Alright, so this is chapter 26, Capitalization, from the Writer's Coach textbook. It starts on page 605 in your textbook. As we go through the video, be sure to pause it and fill in your notes sheet as we go. Rewind if you need to get some more information. Additionally, we will be pausing throughout the video for you to work on assignments throughout the textbook. So be sure you're keeping up with those assignments as well. As we work through capitalization, we're going to talk about the variety of rules that go along with capitalization. And the first rule we have is 26.1.1. The first rule really is the pronoun I is always capitalized. So we can have the example, I worked for 2 years as an apprentice before I received a promotion. We're always going to capitalize that pronoun I. 26.1.2, we're going to capitalize the first words in all declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory sentences. We haven't talked about sentence styles yet, so let's do a real quick review of those things. A declarative sentence is a sentence that makes a statement. So, strong gusts of wind make it dangerous outside. Interrogative sentences ask a question. Who found the book I left on the bus? Imperative sentences tell an individual to do something. Think carefully before you respond. Exclamatory sentences are an exclamation, excitement, or something like that. So what an amazing result this is. Really, in essence, we're just saying capitalize every sentence you write. This is even true when we have sentences that are just single word sentences, like who, how so, or indeed. Even though they're not really a complete sentence and the reader has to fill in the rest of the words themselves, we're still going to capitalize each one of those sentences. 26.1.3, we're going to capitalize the first word in a quotation if the quotation is a complete sentence. For example, several people said, "Stop the train." Even though the word stop is in the middle of the sentence, it's the beginning of what is being said in the quotation marks, and so it needs to be capitalized. Or, she really wants to go to the concert, Linda confided. 26.1.4, when a quotation consists of one complete sentence in two parts, only capitalize the first part of the quotation. So we can have the sentence, "How much longer, asked Bill, is this going to take?" We can move the sentence around so it would say, "How much longer is this going to take, asked Bill," and we wouldn't capitalize the I of is. Just because we have the words asked Bill in the middle of the quotation, we still would just capitalize at the very beginning of the sentence. Rule 26.1.5. If a quotation contains more than one sentence, the first word of each sentence begins with a capital. So we can have, "Please distribute these outlines to everyone," said the manager. They show the topics we will discuss this afternoon. Two complete sentences, both would be capitalized. So we're going to pause here now and practice this out of our textbook. It's on pages 608 and 609. I'd like for you to do sections 26.1a, b, c, and d. There's 4 sections each there with talking about each one of those things. As you go through, be sure to follow the directions. I believe on each one of those sections it's asking you to write the entire sentence. Follow those directions and use the examples. I don't see a need for us to have to write 40 sentences though, so you only need to do the first 3 in each section. Again, be sure to follow the directions. Pause this here. When you're done, resume the video and we'll continue with the notes. All right, the next group of rules for capitalization all deal with proper nouns. And just remember that a proper noun names a specific person or a place instead of a common noun that is really quite vague. So rule 26.1.6 is basically capitalize all proper nouns. Making sure we capitalize names, both first and last names, like Jim Thorpe, or places, Cedar Breaks National Monument, Golden Gate Bridge, Sky Tower. Every word in that name or that place needs to be capitalized. I can take the sentence, I am in middle school, and I would not capitalize the M or the S of middle school. However, if I say I go to Mission Middle School, I then would capitalize the M of mission and middle, as well as school, because that is naming the specific place. 26.1.7. Capitalize each part of a person's full name, including their initials. Often we'll include just an individual's initials as a middle part of their name, and we capitalize all parts, just like we see here in this example. Sometimes people's last names have beginning parts like Mick or Mac or O or Saint. We capitalize both the very beginning of that as well as the rest of the main part of their name. There are times, though, where you have a different beginning separate from Mick or Mac, O or Saint, and there's different rules for those, and the best option there to look up in a biographical dictionary on how to best capitalize those. 26.1.8, we're going to capitalize geographical names. So we're going to capitalize streets, cities, states, nations, continents, deserts, mountains, regions, islands, rivers, lakes, bays, seas, and oceans. Take a moment here to pause and write and fill in the chart in your notes with an example of each one of those. Here's a hint. Look back in your book. There's a whole list of them there for you. Rule 26.1.9. Do not capitalize compass points such as north, southwest, or east when they simply refer to direction. I can have the sentence, someday I would like to visit the southwest. In this case, the word southwest is capitalized because it's naming a region of the country. However, if I just have the train travel east for about an hour, we would not capitalize the E of east. Rule 26.1.10. We're going to capitalize the names of specific events, periods of time, and documents. So again, we're going to capitalize historical periods, events, documents, days, months, days, religious days, and special events. Here, it's important to note that seasons of the year are an exception. So we don't capitalize words like fall, spring, summer, winter, unless it is part of a title. Again, pause and write. There's a really good chart in your book that has some really good examples for you to use. Alright, so I'd like for you to pause the video now and work on the next two sections out of your textbook. It starts on page 614, sections 26.1e and 26.1f. Sorry, I mean 614 is the page number. Again, looking at those directions, it does not ask you to write the complete sentence, only the words that need to be capitalized, and we're only going to do the first three in that section. Continuing to work with proper nouns, we're going to look at Rule 26.111. Capitalize the names of various organizations, government bodies, political parties, and nationalities, as well as the languages spoken by different groups. So, for example, the Peace Corps helps promote a better understanding of other cultures. Peace Corps is the name of that organization, so we capitalize those words there. Same with countries like Switzerland, or languages, German, French, Italian, other organizations, Boy Scouts. Page 615 in your textbook has a more detailed list of examples if you need some more to understand this. 26.1.12. We're going to capitalize references to religions, deities, which means gods, and religious scriptures. There's a whole list of them on page 616 in your textbook that may help with your understanding of this. I think it's important to note the extra thing in your book after the table there. It says, in the following examples, the words God and goddess are not capitalized because they are part of mythology. However, their specific names are capitalized. 26.1.13, we're going to capitalize the names of specific places and items. Again, pause and look at the chart on page 617 for examples. Rule 26.1.1.14, we're going to capitalize the names of all awards. So we can have the Grammy Awards, the Gates Scholarship, the Good Conduct Medal. Notice how the word "the" is not capitalized before the award name. The only time we would capitalize the word "the" is if it is at the beginning of a sentence. Pause again now, opening your book to page 618. Complete sections 26.1G and 26.1H. Following the directions as written. Again, we're only going to do the first 3 in each section. The next part of the chapter deals with using capitalization for proper adjectives. Just a real quick reminder, adjectives help describe something else. So a proper adjective is going to take a proper noun that names an actual person or a place, and we're going to use it to describe. So rule 26.1.15. Capitalize most proper adjectives. Key word there is most. So the word Korean War is a proper noun. It names a specific war. But if we use that to describe a person that fought in the war, we would say a Korean War veteran. And in that case, Korean and war is both still capitalized, but the V of veteran would not be. Or we can have the proper noun Cuba to name the place. But if I use the word Cuban to describe a type of sandwich from Cuba, Cuban is still capitalized, but sandwich is not. Just as a reminder, some proper nouns are going to need to be modified to turn them into proper adjectives. So we would have Kenya would change to Kenyan. Or something from Texas would be Texan, Nebraska, Nebraskan. Rule 26.1.16. Capitalize the brand names used as adjectives. So you could have the brand name of a product, fruit and rice. If we're going to use that to describe the cereal, we are still going to capitalize fruit and rice. Continuing with the chapter, we have using capitalization for titles of people. When we're talking about titles of people, we're talking about words that we use to help describe an individual. So 26.1.17, capitalize the title of a person when the title is followed by the person's name, or when it is used in place of a person's name in a direct address. So I could have the sentence, Professor Walsh and Mr. Smith have approved the plan. We capitalize the P of Professor and the M of Mr. because they're titles associated right with the person's name right after it. If the person's name does not follow right after that title, we do not capitalize the title then. So the professor has approved the plan. Because there's no name after the word professor, we don't capitalize the P there. Or tell Dr. Peterson if you do not feel better soon. Because the name is after the title, we capitalize D of doctor. Tell the doctor if you do not feel better soon. Again, there's no name there, so we don't capitalize doctor. 26.1.18. Capitalize the titles of government officials when they immediately precede the name of specific individuals. If no person is named, these titles should be written in lowercase. This is the same as the previous rule with the titles, only these are dealing with government titles or officials. So we would have Congressman Clark will throw out the first pitch at the stadium because Congressman is followed by the name of that individual, Clark. We're going to capitalize both Congressman and Clark. However, if there is no name that follows after the title, the congressman will throw out the first pitch at the stadium. We don't capitalize the C of congressman. Same thing with words like president. President Obama will travel to Canada for a meeting. If there is no name after the title, we don't capitalize it. (26.1.19) Capitalize titles showing family relationships when the title is used with the person's name or as the person's name, except when the title comes after a possessive noun or pronoun. In this rule, we're talking about titles like uncle, aunt, grandma, grandpa, and so forth. So when we have the name following after the title, we're going to capitalize both Uncle and Bob. But if I just say my uncle is going to pick us up from school today, because there's no name, we don't capitalize the U of uncle. In this example, we're using grandma in place of her name. So in this case, we would capitalize the G of grandma. The final example I have here is Caitlin's Uncle Bob lives in another town. The word Caitlin's is possessive. It shows ownership. And since it shows ownership, we do not capitalize the U of uncle. Pause and practice again, this time working on sections 26.1i and 26.1j, which is on page 622. Again, you're only going to do the first three of each section, following the directions. You again do not need to write the complete sentence, just the words that need to be capitalized. Take a couple of minutes to do that now, and then finish the rest of the video. We have just a few rules left with capitalization. This next section is dealing with capitalization for titles of works. This means books, movies, shows, plays, poetry, anything that would have a title to it. 26.1.20. Capitalize the first words and all other key words in the titles of books, newspapers, magazines, short stories, poems, plays, movies, songs, and artworks. The key word here is key words, actually. We are not going to capitalize words like a, and, the, unless they're the very first word in the title. 26.1.21. Capitalize the title of a school course when it's followed by a course number, or when it refers to a language. Otherwise, you do not capitalize subject names. So we would capitalize the Spanish, or Biology 250 because there's the number that follows after it, or AP Physics. AP is short for Advanced Placement, or English. We do not capitalize subjects if they are not the name of a language or if there's no number. So I would have the sentence, I have history in the afternoon. History would not be capitalized. Next couple of rules deal with capitalization in letters when we write letters to other individuals. 26.1.22, in the heading, capitalize the city, street, state, and the month. So you'd capitalize 2nd Street, Billings, capitalize Montana, April, all those keywords. Rule 26.1.23, in a letter, in the salutation, capitalize the first word, any title, and the name of the person or group mentioned. In the closing, capitalize just the first word. So you would capitalize in the introduction or the salutation, Dear friend Sam, we'd capitalize Dear and Sam. Dear Uncle Bob, because Uncle is the title for Uncle Bob, we'd capitalize all three of those words. In the closing of a letter, your is capitalized, but any other word after it, like friend, would not be. Finally, dealing with capitalization in abbreviations, acronyms, and initials. Rule 26.1.24. In general, we're going to capitalize all abbreviations, acronyms, and initials if the words or names they stand for are capitalized. If we were going to take and write out the entire word that we're abbreviating, or the word that we're taking acronym and using, acronym would be the first letter of each word in the title, or the initials. If we're going to capitalize all of those, if we wrote them all the way out, we would capitalize the abbreviations, the acronym, or the initial. So here would be some examples for that. And our fourth example we have there with NAFTA or MIA, those are acronyms for a much longer statement. So NAFTA is North American Free Trade Agreement. We would capitalize all of those words, so we'll capitalize the acronym. It's important to note that the abbreviations for most units of measurements are not capitalized. We don't capitalize centimeters or cm, GAL, or gallons. One of the only ones that we do capitalize is the T for tablespoons to identify the difference between tablespoon and teaspoon. Rule 26.1.25, capitalize abbreviations that appear in addresses. So we capitalize the NY of New York, the NE of Nebraska, and so forth. In 26.1.26, we're going to capitalize acronyms that stand for proper nouns such as businesses, government bodies, and organizations. So FBI is short for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Again, we capitalize each one of those words, so we need to capitalize the acronym as well. Pause and practice one last time for this chapter on page 626, doing sections 26.1M and 26.1N. I know there are two sections that we skipped over. I didn't think we needed to do those as a practice. Again, follow the directions as they're written. Do only the first three in each section. As we're done, just double check your assignment. Make sure you have everything clearly marked as what each section is. You should have 12 sections total done. There are 3 questions in each section, so that makes a total of 36 questions that you should do. Remember, you're just doing those first 3 in each section. We're following the directions. The only 4 that required a complete sentence are sections A, B, C, and D. The rest require just a short answer. As we finish up the chapter, if there are questions you have, be sure you ask for clarification. Make sure you have well thought out or well written notes. You'll be able to use that on tests and any other assignments we have yet in this chapter.